everything changes, I can change anything. Turning the pages, everything's new. If life's little stages are teaching me anything, it's everything changes, and I can change too. Used to be when things got crazy, I'd get to feeling low, but I found out I can't let that faze me. Honey, now I know. When everything changes, I can change anything. Turning the pages, everything's new. If life's little stages are teaching me anything, it's everything changes, and I can change too. Who expects the unexpected? Life sneaking up on you, and sometimes we all feel disconnected. What you gonna do? When everything changes, I can change anything. Turning the pages, everything's new. If life's little stages are teaching me anything, it's everything changes, and I can change too. Who's to say why it works this way? Well, it's kind of strange, but it's true. When everything changes, I can change anything. Turning the pages, everything's new. If life's little stages are teaching me anything, it's everything changes, and I can change. Everything changes, I can change anything. Turning the pages, everything's new. If life's little stages are teaching me anything, it's everything changes, and I can change too. Everything changes, and I can change too. Everything changes, and I can change too.
Oh, Alexa Ehrlich and Lauren James, what a beautiful reminder. And for some reason, it teared me up. When everything changes, and it is, right? I can change anything. Thank you both so much. Welcome, everyone, to Center for Spiritual Living, Rogue Valley in Medford, Oregon. I am spiritual director here, Kimberly Hawkins, and as always, it's our real pleasure to have you join us for our Sunday celebration. As you've just heard, our musicians this morning are Alexa Ehrlich and Lauren James. Our practitioner this morning is Laura Stewart, who will shortly be doing our invocation and reading. We are a progressive, inclusive spiritual community teaching spiritual tools, both to transform personal lives and help make a world that works for everybody. And we welcome each of you, no matter where you happen to be on your own personal spiritual journey. I'm going to invite us to take a collective deep breath right now, hoping it's not the first one you've had a chance to take all week. And I'm going to turn it back over to our lovely musicians to prepare us for our invocation and reading.
We are held in the hands of grace, forever safe in the arms of love. Like a child receives protection from a mother's warm embrace, we are held in the hands of grace. You are held in the hands of grace, a child receives protection from a mother's warm embrace, we are held in the hands of grace. We are held in the hands of grace, forever safe in the arms of love. Like a child receives protection from a mother's warm embrace, we are held in the hands of grace. We are held in the hands of grace.
Oh my goodness, that was absolutely beautiful. There is one power and one presence. There's one infinite intelligence moving in, through, and as all that exists. And it is here in its fullness, its wholeness, right here and right now. It is present in everyone in this room, in everyone who is helping to make today's service the amazing expression of the divine that it is. It is present in the words of our musicians. It is present in Reverend Kimberly's message. It's present in each and every one of you, just the way that you are and just the way that you are not, because it is perfect in its wholeness, and so are we. And for this and so much more, I'm incredibly grateful, knowing that our time together today is blessed. And so it is. So I selected a reading today from Science of Mind magazine, from the Science of Mind book, from our beloved Ernest Holmes on faith. In order to have faith, we must have a conviction that all is well. In order to keep faith, we must allow nothing to enter our thought which will weaken this conviction. Faith is built up from belief, acceptance, and trust. Whenever anything enters our thought which destroys in any degree one of these attitudes, to that extent our faith is weakened. Our mind must be steady in its conviction that our life is some part of God and that the Spirit is incarnated in us. Affirmations and denials are for the purpose of vitalizing our faith. Bless you. For the purpose of converting thought to a belief in things spiritual. The foundation for correct mental treatment is perfect God, perfect man, perfect being. Thought must be organized to fit this premise, and conclusions must be built on this premise. We must keep our faith vital if we hope to successfully treat for ourselves and others. All science is built upon faith principles. All principles are invisible, and all laws are accepted on faith. No man has seen God at any time, nor has he seen goodness, truth, or beauty, but we do know that it exists. Not only must we have complete faith in Spirit and its ability to know and to do, but we must have complete confidence in our approach to it. We must not be lukewarm in our conviction. We must know that we know. We are to demonstrate that spiritual thought force has power over all apparent material resistance. And this cannot be done unless we have abounding confidence and faith in the principle upon which we approach. And so it is.
I cannot do all the good that the world needs, but the world needs all the good that I can do. I cannot do all the good that the world needs, but the world needs all the good that I can do. I cannot do all the good that the world needs, but the world needs all the good I can do. I cannot do all the good that the world needs, but the world needs all the good I can do. I cannot do all the good that the world needs, but the world needs all the good that I can do. I cannot do all the good that the world needs, but the world needs all the good I can do. I cannot do all the good that the world needs, but the world needs all the good that I can do. I cannot do all the good that the world needs, but the world needs all the good I can do. I cannot do all the good that the world needs, but the world needs all the good I can do. I cannot do all the good that the world needs, but the world needs all the good that I can do.
Lexa and Lauren rocking it. Thank you so much. I'd like to begin today with a story about a man and a dog. The man acquired a hunting dog, and when the dog was brand new, he decided to take it out for a trial run. So out they went duck hunting in a boat in the middle of the lake. The man shoots a duck, it falls into the lake, and the dog dutifully gets out of the boat and walks on water across the lake, retrieves the duck and walks on water back to bring it to his master. And the man is like, whoa, what just happened? Can I even believe my eyes? Well, he continued to hunt, got another duck, shot the duck, fell into the lake. The dog walked across the water, retrieved it, same thing happened. And the man was astounded, but decided to kind of keep this event to himself for fear of looking kind of like a fool. But the next day, he invited his neighbor to go out hunting with him to kind of have him experience this if it would happen again. And sure enough, the first duck shot fell into the lake. The dog walks across the water, brings the duck back to the master. The neighbor doesn't say a word, and so neither does the dog owner. A couple more times during the hunting trip that day, the same thing happened. The dog was amazing, walking across to get the duck and bringing it back. Nobody said anything. Finally, toward the end of the little trip, the owner turns to the neighbor and says, "Hey, have you noticed anything unusual about my dog?" And the neighbor kind of rubs his chin and thinks for a minute and says, "Well, now that you mention it, I noticed that your dog doesn't know how to swim." And I love that story because, the obvious miracle was completely overlooked. And I'm afraid that sometimes in life we have a tendency not to notice when prayers are answered, when things are going well, when miracles happen. We sometimes take it for granted. And, he was quick to criticize. Maybe the dog couldn't swim, we don't know. But I think it's true of the way we look at others sometimes too, without recognizing the beautiful gifts they have to offer the world. Sometimes we criticize the things we think they cannot do. So it's a beautiful teaching story. And I chose it as well because this idea of walking on water, my title for my message this morning is Walk on Water, Faith. Now, that phrase I discovered in our book of the month, which is All About Love by Susan Taylor. It's excerpts from her essays in Essence magazine. She wrote a weekly column for years called, I don't know if it was weekly or monthly, but it was a column that she did for decades called In the Spirit. So reflecting on this idea, I was intrigued by this idea of walk on water faith. And what it meant to me initially was unflappable faith, unshakable faith, the kind of faith that even when things are challenging and going terribly wrong in our view, that we know everything's going to work out for the good. That kind of faith that enables us to do the impossible, like that dog was able to do. But upon reflection, I started to change my definition of what walk on water faith would really be. Of course, the phrase and the idea of walking on water comes from another story in the Bible, Matthew 14:22, where Jesus has been off praying by himself. He did that a lot. The Bible will say he went apart for a while to pray. And as he came back, the disciples had all gone out in a boat on a lake. And Jesus was walking on water toward the boat, and they freaked out. I mean, it was scary. Here was this figure coming to them, walking on the water. They thought it was a ghost, and they cried out, and Jesus reassured them, it's I. And Peter said, Lord, if it's you, invite me out there with you. And Jesus said, come. Peter steps out of the boat and begins to walk across the water toward Jesus. But at one point, Peter looks down, and he sees the waves being whipped up by the wind, and he gets afraid. And when that happens, he begins to sink into the water. And he cries out again, Lord, save me. And of course, Jesus reaches out his hand, brings Peter back in the boat, and says something about ye of little faith. I love that story because metaphorically, when we're keeping our eyes on God, Christians in this story would say, the disciples, when Peter kept his eyes on Jesus, he could do the miraculous. But when he took his eyes off that and looked at conditions, it didn't work so well. And the same is true. And a new thought, what we would say was when we keep our eyes on truth, just as Laura read in that beautiful excerpt from our founder, Ernest Holmes, when we go back again and again to keep our eyes, our attention, our consciousness on truth with a capital T, that God is only good, that only good can come from whatever we're experiencing, then we're able to move through storms and challenges and windy times, rocky times in our lives, knowing that we're okay and staying afloat. But when we look down and we pay attention to conditions as if they are the truth with a capital T, we're in trouble. So it's a beautiful, beautiful story about trusting in God's goodness and the power of the divine. Now, there's also this idea of looking up. When Peter was looking up toward where he was going, he was fine. When he looked down, not so much. I've told the story before of an incredible experience I had in a workshop with Reverend Dr. Kathy Ann Lewis, who was basing a little exercise on the work of Emma Curtis Hopkins, who talked about looking up. So what she had us do in this workshop for ministers was to think of an issue, a problem in our lives. And you could do this on your own this week. And she said, think about your problem and look down. And then we shared with a partner. And what came out of that sharing was a lot of angst and worry and not so good feelings. Then she had us each think about the problem and look straight ahead, horizontally. And what was shared then was, I felt a little lighter. I felt like there might be possibilities for change and coming through the storm. And then finally, you look up and you think about your problem. And that's when the solutions, the faith, the knowing that everything would work out okay came to us. And it's kind of interesting because we teach that God, omnipotence, divine love is everywhere. So it's not just up there, it's down there, it's around us, it's everywhere. But there's something about metaphorically or physically lifting our eyes, lifting our gaze that helps us go to the upper room, if you will, go to a higher state of consciousness. It was interesting. One time when I was in ministerial school, I attended a Buddhist service, if you will. It was a meditation session. And the monk taught us to sit on our cushion with an erect spine, close the eyes, but he had us, with closed eyes, glance slightly upward with our eyes. And again, I think it's the same thing. It's like welcoming divine guidance, welcoming divine truth into our consciousness. So this question of, is walk on water faith, we might call it WOW faith, an acronym, right? Walk on water. Is walk on water faith unflappable or unshakable? I would say not necessarily. And that Peter is the perfect example of that. We're human. And, we're going to have times, most of us likely will have times when our faith is shaken. And no matter how strong our faith can be, sometimes challenges come up. Let's face it, the times we're facing right now has probably done that for many of us. There's just been a lot of angst, a lot of worry, and so on. So accepting that there's divine order, despite all these apparent storms, like the waves and the wind, whether it's conflict we're experiencing, disease, financial challenges, it's okay if upon occasion our faith gets shaken. It's okay. It's part of the process. And I think we need to not beat ourselves up about it, but we need to look up. I'd like to read a couple paragraphs from Susan Taylor's book, All About Love. It's in a whole section that she calls Walk on Water Faith. And this particular reading comes from a section she calls The Divine Design, because really faith is about accepting and believing that there's always divine order going on, even when it looks chaotic, even when it looks stormy. Taylor writes this: our life seldom moves forward in a straight line or unfolds in the way we want it to. Life is like a giant jigsaw puzzle that mystifies us because there's no picture on the top of the box we can view to show us how the many pieces fit together. But though the myriad shapes and sizes are scattered about, there is a divine design, a perfect plan. We just can't see the whole picture, and we want it to be a pastoral scene. Nothing that God created is haphazard. You didn't simply stumble onto the planet. You were called for this hour. In other words, we were each called for these times, as turbulent as they may be. Your presence on earth, Taylor writes, was preordained. Our rational mind gets confused, makes us long for a life free of pain, challenge, or change. But life is an adventure, a great journey of exploration, risk, discovery, and change, change, change. There are no sure maps to guide you, but your destination is assured. Your soul knows the way. Our soul has come to earth to refine itself, and it chose the divine right body needed to attend to the tasks God put before it. We are, body, mind, and soul, all of us, in life's finishing school. I love that idea of life's finishing school, to accept the challenges that come, that will polish us, that will grow us, that will grow our faith if we allow them to do so. Taylor has an example in the book of this, and it's an example I think many of us can relate to. I know I can. It's the story of a woman named Sharon, who Taylor, the author, ran into Sharon in an airport while she was waiting for a plane. And she noticed in her friend's eyes a real look of sadness and despair and fear. And what Sharon shared with her is that she had just been told that she was being phased out of a job that she really needed. She was a single mom and very much in need of the income it was producing. And as the two talked in between planes, in between in between the time they needed to leave, Sharon realized and shared that she had been very unhappy at that job, if the truth be told. She was underpaid, she was undervalued, and there was no possibility of advancement. So she really was chafing at the bit. And she realized that being let go gave her the opportunity to negotiate a severance package that would give her the money to make a down payment on a house. And it also gave her the opportunity to change paths, to change careers. So she left a little bit lifted. And when the author, Susan Taylor, talked to Sharon the next time, she had a new job. She had become a real estate broker. She had purchased her first home that was going to be a rental property. She was very happy, and things were going very, very well. I know I've experienced something like that in my life. I think a lot of us have. I remember in particular one of the darkest times in my life when I got divorced. And it was so challenging after 24 years, with the person I thought I was going to be with forever. I remember one night during that time sitting outside of our beautiful home we had built together, sitting in my car, and it was dusk or getting dark, and I was sobbing, just not wanting to go home. And a police officer came up to me because it was a nice neighborhood, and I guess he thought, what's this lady doing sitting in her car at night, And we talked just briefly, and he asked me what was going on, and I shared it with him. And I still remember that time because it was like the darkest time. And yet out of that came the opportunity to know myself better, to define the path that I wanted to take, to be empowered in my life. And it was really a turning point for good, even though at the time it felt like the end of the world. The other thing I wanted to talk about with Sharon and what happened with her is this concept that we teach in Science of Mind called unconscious invitation. We know that our thoughts are creative. In our Essential Earnest class, we have students write a paper about a time in their life when unconscious invitation. So what does this mean? Consciously, Sharon wanted to hang on to that job, right? Because it was her security. Unconsciously, she knew it wasn't the path for the highest and best unfoldment for her soul. Her soul was calling for something different. And so there was an unconscious invitation to the universe to end that job. And because she didn't have the courage or the foresight to see what could be ahead to quit, the universe moved in to take the job away and to clear the path. So I think that idea of unconscious invitation can actually work two ways. Sometimes it can bring about something we really don't want, but the idea is to pay attention to what truly our soul is calling for and to trust it. We also teach in our foundations class that we're going to experience breakdowns in life. It's part of life. But a breakdown is always, always followed by a breakthrough. And the bigger the breakdown, chances are the bigger the breakthrough. Now, we can't necessarily depend on the breakthrough coming immediately. Sometimes it's a process. Sometimes it happens soon. Sometimes it happens several years. But I think this idea of breakdowns lead to breakthroughs is one that we can keep in mind right now when we're still experiencing a pandemic, when we're still experiencing political acrimony and inability to collaborate. There's a lot of things going on that appear as breakdowns, and when we can trust that the breakthrough is coming, if we stay the course, if we keep looking up, if we keep trusting. There is an affirmation that I've used a lot in my life, and it's actually a paraphrasing of a Bible passage from Proverbs, and it goes something like this. The Bible says, I trust in the Lord with all my heart. So I usually say, I trust in divine love with all my heart, and lean not on my own understanding. In all my ways I acknowledge Spirit, and it directs my path. So this idea that walk on water faith is a process. It's not a one-time done deal. I'm going to have faith. I'm never going to waver. I know God is all there is. I know good unfolds. I know I can pray and have my prayers answered. No, it is a continual process, I believe, for most of us. Can we reach? A friend at lunch this week suggested maybe there is such a thing as walk on water faith, and I'm not denying that maybe we can get there, but for most of us, I think it's a process. And I also believe that the more we do our spiritual practice and the more we pay attention to when there's been answered prayer, when there's been a breakthrough, there's a spiraling up that happens so that I think in general we lose our faith less often and for less a period of time. We can be quicker to get back on that faith path. And yet if we're not, we need to be gentle with ourselves and we need to understand that it's part of the process. Theologian Paul Tillich said, doubt is not the opposite of faith, it is one element of faith. And to me, that's kind of reassuring. He talked about making peace with our doubt and welcoming it back into the overall definition of faith, because he said that the ultimate idea of faith is trust in the infinite or acknowledging the infinite. And in that process, there are times when we can't see it and we have to work through it. I hope that makes some sense. I know for me, it's reassuring. There are some lyrics by vocalist Abby Lincoln. She said, "Keep your hands wide open and let the sun shine through, because you can never lose a thing if it belongs to you." So thinking about that, if there's loss in our life, that perhaps it wasn't a season for us to keep having that particular thing or relationship, that it didn't belong to us in an ultimate sense, that there's something else brewing, something else being prepared, that breakthrough is about to happen. So I want to talk about 3 ways I think we can continue to develop walk on water faith and to maintain walk on water faith. First of all, obviously, I think, is our spiritual practice. Spending time in prayer, spending time in meditation. Sometimes I feel like a broken record, but I know for me, I need that reminder constantly, because that's how we access divine guidance. That's how we see past the conditions, past the choppy waves in the sea, and keep our eye on the divine. Secondly is gratitude. Recognizing the good that is right now happening in our lives. Recognizing where prayer has been answered. And I think gratitude can go into the past. It's really helpful sometimes when we're in a challenging situation to recall a challenging situation in the past, like when I was getting divorced and I felt so bereft, and seeing how it unfolded and how it played out and what the good was that came out of it. Gratitude can be practiced for our present circumstances. Despite any challenges, what are the blessings? What is the good that's going on? And it can be practiced for the future. In other words, giving thanks that things work out for the best always, just as Jesus did when he fed the 5,000 with the 2 loaves and fishes, the bread and fishes. He gave thanks in advance that they were all being fed. So spiritual practices, gratitude. The third way I think we develop and maintain our walk on water faith is through community. It's through community. It is difficult to do, I think, as hermits on our own. When we connect to community, when we listen to a service and the beautiful uplifting music here, when we attend a class, when I teach a class, when we engage with others in spiritual community, it's a wonderful reminder of truth. And sometimes when we're in that position that Peter was, of looking down and sinking in our fear, someone else has come out the other side and can offer words of wisdom and support. So I think this community offers that. And I want to remind you, if you haven't already heard, that next week after our live broadcast at 11:30, 11:45, the line will be open at 11:30. We're going to have a Zoom call, a community connection call, because until we can meet safely in person, I think it's really important that we stay connected. So please join us. The link will be in our newsletter again this week. It was in last week on a community connection time. You're free to talk about anything in the service that struck you, that you want to discuss, free to share what's going on in your life. It will be a time to come together to be uplifted, to have a faith lift, if you know what I mean. And I'm not lisping, a faith lift. No matter how difficult the situation we face, our question must always be this, according to 13th century Sufi mystic Rumi. Our question must always be, what has this new arrival, sent by a God beyond, come to teach me? What has this new arrival come to teach me? And I think we all can be asking that right now, whatever we're feeling about this situation with COVID, with finances, with the world situation, with our political situation. What has all this come to teach me? And as Alexa and Lauren so beautifully sang, what is mine to do? I can't do everything the world needs, but what I can do, the world does need. What I can do, what is mine to do? I'm going to leave you with this quote from Henry Ward Beecher, which I love. Every tomorrow has two handles. We can take hold of it with the handle of anxiety or with the handle of faith. Which will you choose, my friends? Let's go into prayer. As I take a moment to just breathe, I encourage us all to do just that. Giving thanks for the very ability to take a deep, nurturing, nourishing breath of life. Knowing as I do that, it is Spirit, it is God, it is divine love that I inhale. It is divine love that I exhale, and it is divine love into which I exhale, that we are surrounded, immersed in, made of a source and a substance beyond our understanding. That is wholeness and beauty and peace. That is love. Infinite good, infinite abundance, harmony, and so much more. God, Spirit, Atman, Source, whatever we choose to call that energy that is everywhere present, is with us always, in us, through us, wanting to express through us, calling us forward, calling us upward, lifting us to a life where we express our gifts, where we do what we can do for ourselves and the world around us. And so I bless each of us in our journey to develop and maintain walk on water faith, where we understand challenges come as an invitation, as Rumi said, to look at what we are to learn. Where when we are challenged, like Peter, instead of looking down at the conditions and our fear, we look up. We turn our attention to that divine source that is always there to guide us, to deliver us, to enable us to be a change maker in the world. Susan Taylor said, "We are the healers we've been waiting for. We are the leaders, the ones who can set things right. The anxiety we feel is divine discontent. It is God's call to us to heal ourselves, our community, and Mother Earth." I bless each of us in our ability to answer that call, to live together, to work together in harmony and unity to build a world that works for all. And gratitude for this community, for this teaching, for the knowledge that God is good and only good. And if we turn our attention to Source, we are always guided, always blessed, always healed. In gratitude for all of this, I release my word knowing it is heard, it is answered, and we say together, and so it is. Amen.
called to be a healer for all humanity. I am called to be a dreamer, believe in what can be. I am called to be a maker, be an instrument of peace. I am called to be a giver, of abundance I receive. I am called to be a prayer, living out of the truth I seek. I am called to be everything. I am called to be. Called to be the glory here on earth, so all might see all the love and all the beauty that shines in you and me. I am the living, breathing God, and you are one in me. We're called to be. You are called to be a mother, to nurture family. You are called to be a brother, be strength in times of need. You are called to be a neighbor, see a friend in all you meet. You are called to be a leader, to build community. You are called to be a prayer, living out of the truth you seek. You are called to be everything. You are called to be. Called to be the glory here on earth, so all might see all the love and all the beauty that shines in you and me. You are the living, breathing God, and you are one in me. We're called to be. We are called to be the kindness, set the broken-hearted free. We are called to be forgiveness, where pain has run too deep. We are called to be compassion, be the wind beneath each wing. We are called to make communion, only then can we succeed. We are called to be a prayer, living out of the truth you seek. We are called to be everything. We are called to be. Called to be the glory here on earth, so all might see all the love and all the beauty that shines in you and me. We are the living, breathing God, and you are one in me. We're called to be, called to be peace, called to be joy, called to be love, called to be peace, called to be joy, called to be free, called to be peace, called to be joy, called to be love, called to be.
How do you two do it? How do you pick the perfect song again and again? Thank you. That was beautiful. It's the time in our service now where we turn our attention to a spiritual practice that I like to call sacred giving, or giving from the place of gratitude. It's where we get to be grateful, to recognize all the good that we are receiving, and we make a conscious choice to share a portion of it to those places where we are spiritually fed. I want to give thanks from the beginning here to all of you who have continued to support us during these rather challenging and different times so that we might continue our ministry. Let's say our giving affirmation together, if you would. Graciously, I give from a place of love, knowing that as I give, so do I richly receive. And ain't that the truth? There are several ways to give to Center for Spiritual Living Rogue Valley on our website, www.cslroguevalley.org. There is a donate button. There's a donate button on Facebook if that's where you happen to be watching this live broadcast or the recording. Or you can mail a check to CSLRV, P.O. Box 1458, Medford, Oregon, 97501. Before we leave you, I do have a few announcements. Invitation always stands to join us on Wednesday mornings for our Zoom connection call led by practitioner Nancy Clay. We're so grateful to Nancy for serving the community in that way. That's at 9 a.m. The Zoom link is in our weekly newsletter. If you're not receiving that e-newsletter that comes out every Wednesday, you can sign up on our Facebook page under email, or simply send our admin person an email at cslroguevalley@gmail.com. Prayer requests are always welcome. Our practitioners are always ready to pray with you, for you or your loved ones, the world, whatever your prayer request might be. There is a button on our website, or you could send to that same email address I gave you. By the way, our practitioners are meeting after service today on Zoom and continue to serve the community in all kinds of ways, getting creative here because we are still in isolation, at least physically. There's a wonderful opportunity coming up on Monday, October 18th. It is an interfaith call for climate action happening at noon on the lawn in front of Jackson County Courthouse here in Medford. Groups from all faith communities are coming together to talk about how ravaging our planet is against our religion. So we're going to stand in solidarity, in silence, in preparation for the UN talks on climate change that will be going on later this month in Scotland, to send a message that we need not only to talk about climate change, we need to take action to save our beautiful Mother Earth. I think that's it. Oh, yes, I think I said next week, after Sunday service, I don't have it in my notes here, but next week after Sunday service, we're doing a community connection call. So at 11:30, you can tune in. At 11:45, we will start, and it's an opportunity to discuss what perhaps were the messages you got from the service that day, and also just to share and connect and see each other. So I think that's it. I do want to share some sad news before we go to our closing song. I learned this week that our beloved community member, Ross Jones, made his transition Thursday. As his partner, Renee, put it, he made his transition into pure consciousness. He is a light, and I know that our prayers surround Renee and Ross's family, his daughter, at this time of missing and grieving his loss, and also knowing that the light that Ross is will never be dim. So our love to you, for sure. we go now to Laura and Alexa for our closing song.
I always know what I need to know when I need to know it. And every time I forget that's so, the universe will show it. There seems to be a plan that works, and there's no way I can blow it. 'Cause I always know what I need to know when I need to know it. How does the mighty oak tree face the changes autumn brings? He doesn't worry if he'll grow new leaves when it is spring. Let me be that trusting. Let me let go and know the buds are on their way, though I'm naked in the snow. 'Cause I always know what I need to know when I need to know it. And every time I forget that's so, the universe will show it. There seems to be a plan that works, and there's no way I can blow it. 'Cause I always know what I need to know when I need to know it. How does the tiny robin feel when she finally leaves the nest? She takes a giant leap of faith and lets nature do the rest. Let me be that faithful. Let me dare to fly. And though my wings are frail, there's a simple reason why. 'Cause I always know what I need to know when I need to know it. And every time I forget that's so, the universe will show it. There seems to be a plan that works, and there's no way I can blow it. 'Cause I always know what I need to know when I need to know it. There's a power in the universe greater than just me, and it works a million miracles when I let it be. 'Cause I always know what I need to know when I need to know it. And every time I forget that's so, the universe will show it. There seems to be a plan that works, and there's no way I can blow it. 'Cause I always know what I need to know when I need to know it. I always know what I need to know when I need to know it.
Big thanks to Alexa Ehrlich and Lauren James for the beautiful music this day. I also want to thank once again our devoted Sunday team. This morning they consisted of Jason Rummel, Bill and Connie Miner, Shannon Schnibbe, and our sound engineer, Tom Frederick. Thank you so much for making this broadcast possible. Thank you all for tuning in. And before we say goodbye, I want to remind us all, me included, that sometimes the strongest faith comes from experiencing the darkest corners. And as Martin Luther King reminded us, faith is taking the first step, even when we can't see the entire staircase. Namaste, my friends. Take care.